Welcome back, everyone, to a very special episode of The Real Deal. Do you know why it's a special episode, Sheldon?
I do know why it's a special
because
episode.
One, you're here.
I'm here.
Yep. You've never been on this show.
Yep.
Also,
hey guys.
Star Wars came out this weekend.
Star Wars. Rogue One.
Rogue One. Now,
many things to talk about in this film.
Many things. So I brought you on the show, Sheldon, because sometimes I have Brandon on the show because he's our resident comic book expert. However, you're our resident Star Wars expert.
I am a Star Wars nut.
Usually I'm usually the Star Wars expert in the room. However,
I think
Sheldon has surpassed me on Star Wars knowledge, and
I have Star Wars curtains in my bedroom.
Yes, he is also the only person I have ever met that has matched my hours on Star Wars Battlefront.
Yep.
And if you know anything about me in Star Wars Battlefront, that is quite a feat. So,
I know.
So Sheldon,
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to talk about Star Wars, as I always do every day.
Yes. Now you can voice your opinion. So, Rogue One. It's the first non-trilogy main movie.
Right.
It's a
standalone.
spin-off. For those of you who don't know, it basically it's a spin-off movie. It doesn't follow the main storyline. Basically, call it Star Wars 3.8, kind of.
A Star Wars story.
It's a Star Wars story, not Star Wars episode.
Yeah.
Blah. So yeah, basically, this film was kind of like an experiment for Disney, seeing if the audience wants more Star Wars.
They're gonna sit down in January or sometime, and they're gonna decide the future of Star Wars based on how Rogue One did.
Yeah, and I think they are going to continue making spin-offs because Rogue One is very good.
I would say
very
it's
good,
epic.
and I think a lot of people like it.
Very good.
So we'll talk about spoilers later because I feel they're important to discussing how the movie is. But just no spoilers. What are your overall impressions or first impressions of the movie?
If one thing, it feels like Star Wars. You don't feel like it's it really feels like Star Wars, just like the way it flows. The planets, the settings, just everything about it feels really good and really puts you into the universe even more than it has in the past.
I agree. I also I really appreciated the aesthetic of this film.
Yes.
It looks a lot of the visuals and costume designs looks like it's straight out of the original trilogy, while also blending some of that with
it felt like the older
CGI.
galaxy. Yeah. The planets were amazing. I loved every single planet that was in it. I loved all the aesthetics. There's a lot of green, a lot of dirt, a lot of everything, and it's just some of the armor is dirty. It's really gritty. It's very.
Yes.
It's not as clean as it maybe has been in the past.
It's definitely more of a in interviews and stuff they said they were much going for more of a war film type of vibe, and I think they definitely accomplished
they accomplished that very well.
Yes, there are definitely some good action scenes and everything in this film that feel very much like a war film, not like a Star Wars film, which is actually really cool.
Characters, by the way, all of them.
All the characters.
I really liked all of them. I felt attached to all of them.
All the characters are very good. Felicity Jones plays the lead in the movie Jyn Erso, and I thought she did very well.
She did very well.
In the history of brunette females playing the lead role in a Star Wars film, which is a lot. She did perfectly fine. She doesn't stand out or anything.
She fit the role quite well, I feel.
Yes. As in terms of other standout characters, who do you like the best?
Cassian.
Cassian
is
good.
A great
played
character.
by Diego Luna.
The Force guy.
Donnie Yen.
Yeah, Donnie Yen.
Yes.
I liked him
the best. He is one of my favorite characters. Donnie Yen is one of my favorite actors. Ip Man, if you've never seen it, I recommend it. He plays a Jedi type of guy. He's not a Jedi.
But he's not a Jedi.
He's
just connected to the Force because he's blind. I just love his fighting style. He just seems so cool. And
he's a very interesting, cool character.
Yeah.
However, my favorite character probably is K-29, the droid.
Oh yeah.
Played by Alan Tudyk, and he is one of the funniest.
He was the best comic relief.
He made this film so funny. He has a lot of great sarcasm.
He has a lot of personality for a droid.
He's a reprogrammed Imperial droid working for the Rebellion, and he's great. Think of a mix between like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy and like C-3PO. It's basically like that. It's great.
He was very funny. I liked him.
Yeah. All the characters are very good. Did you have any minor flaws with the movie?
I mean, just like the usual, not cheesiness, but just like, I don't know, not really. Did you have any flaws?
I did have a couple flaws with the movie. It's definitely not a perfect movie. Don't let people overhype it too much because
I think the good of it outweighs the flaws.
Most definitely. But the first act or the first half-ish, it was a little slow and a little choppy. It jumps around
a lot
from planet to planet and character to
different
character.
time periods.
Yes.
But it did what it was meant to do, though. It like kind of set up the story.
Yeah, it's important to set up a story.
I mean, it did what they wanted it to do. So.
It's good to set up a story and set up all your characters. That's good, and that's what Star Wars has always done. I feel that some of it just felt a little disjointed from each other. Like there are scenes that don't really fit somewhere, and I think they should have taken out. This film went confusing. This film went some production issues. Apparently, the ending was changed a couple times, and like you can tell that there were conflicting narratives throughout it. Right. But overall, it doesn't hurt the movie too much, and I feel like on
the second half of the movie really makes up.
Oh yeah, like even the first act or so is kind of choppy. The second act is pretty good, and then the third act
the best
it's
part.
Really, really good. Yeah. So yeah, it just builds and builds, and it's excellent by the end. But any just final overall your thoughts on the movie?
If I was to give it out of like 10 stars, I'd give it 1,000. Like
really,
it feels like as a huge fan, it feels like I don't want to say a fan service, but it just like kind of feels in that sort of sense. It was just really good. I loved it.
Yes. Yeah.
It was like the Star Wars war film that we always dreamed we wanted.
Definitely. Yeah. It's not a perfect film. It does have a couple issues. However, it is still extremely good and extremely enjoyable. I'm not really letting the flaws detriment it too much. I really like this film. It is really good. So yeah, that's basically our thoughts.
A lot of action keeps it moving. Maybe like one little part where there's just talking, but a lot of action.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved all the action, all the fighting, all the battles. And there was more space battles in this than there has been in any Star Wars film, to be honest.
The space battles are the highlight of this movie, especially at the end.
I would say it's the
highlight. It is so good. Yes. So let's talk a little more specifics now. We're not going to talk about a little spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film,
spoiler warning right here.
Spoiler warning. Stop watching. Go watch the film, and then come back, and we'll watch the rest of this video. So yeah.
Sounds good.
But yeah, that was basically, we both really liked it. That's what you should take away from it. But yeah.
So spoilers. Here we go.
Spoilers. So the first thing I want to talk about, like the main thing I want to talk about is mainly the plot of this movie. Basically, the main character, Jyn Erso, it revolves around her and her father, played by Mads Mikkelsen, which is really good. Basically,
like him. He's really good.
Galen Erso, and he was basically a Imperial scientist that the Empire recruited to help design the Death Star, basically against his will. And the story is he could either resist and then probably get his whole family killed, which some of it did, but
that still kind of happened.
But he could he said he could go along with it and then basically be the head designer, but implement a small little failsafe or sabotage.
A very small failsafe that we know what that.
We know what it is. It's the small little shaft in the Death Star. So I love this part of the film because it basically takes the biggest joke of Episode 4
and it makes it more.
It makes the
sensible.
biggest complaint
story behind it
of Episode 4, and it gives you a reason for it, which is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant.
It makes it. It really gives that small little shaft justice.
Yeah.
Because there's a story behind that small little shaft.
Yeah, it's great. It was like just a brilliant idea, and it just That's one of the things I love about this film. It just mends like a lot of the parts about episode 4 that don't make us
Right. It
sense.
makes it more sensible. And
Yes. I feel like we have to talk about the man himself. What do you think about Darth Vader?
It was super sick. Both his scenes were super awesome.
Yeah.
He's very, you can just feel the anger in him, and you can just see his might and power.
He's not in the movie that much. So
He's not.
if you go in expecting a Darth Vader movie, don't. But
I'm glad he was there, though.
his scenes were fantastic. His first introduction scene is really good when the door opens and you can see his silhouette.
Yeah.
It is great. And then he has a line. He's like basically choking an Imperial guy, the main villain,
Krennic.
and he turns around and he says, "Don't choke on your aspirations."
It's gonna be a line that's gonna be heard.
Oh yeah, like
for a long
Darth
time.
Vader made a choke pun, and it's really dumb and it's the greatest thing ever at the same time.
Right, but that's what's good about Star Wars is there's like always that little bit of cheesiness.
Yes.
That fit in quite well, I thought. So I liked it.
And as great as that scene is, we have to talk about the scene.
The scene that makes his scenes even better, like him.
Yeah. There's a scene near the end of the movie where basically Darth Vader just traps a bunch of rebel guys in a dark hallway and
he
just
slaughters them.
just completely slaughters them.
Goes ham on all of them and they all die.
Yeah, it's basically the Darth Vader scene that I have always wanted.
Right. A
So-
very great rage scene. Well, not rage scene,
Yeah.
but just, man, he's just so brutal.
I know.
You could see the anger and just everything within him. Yeah, that scene alone was like probably the highlight of the film.
Oh, it's so good. Also, a cool little touch I noticed that